Counselor. Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Um, I think I would take this opportunity to, just clear up a couple misinterpretations or maybe some misunderstandings or possibly some circumstances where members on the other side simply were not listening when we were having our side of the debate. As I said very clearly, and the Hansard would bear me out, is that we had no intentions of starting anything from scratch because we understood and we outlined very clearly that there were institutions in Tobago that existed that were doing work, and the idea was to build on those. And I'm going to repeat one more time, to have them, in addition to service our locals, market them to international students. I'm speaking slowly because obviously when I said it earlier, it was done too quickly. Madam Presiding Officer, I would also like to place on record that because we understand the work of credible Tobagonians who've really been doing a lot of hard work, we applaud all of the work that they've been doing on the ground for us to get to where we are today. Madam Presiding Officer, it seems like this is a project that's been going on for over a decade now. One of the previous speakers spoke about the fact that we have several students who come to Tobago who already do research in Tobago, and that is fine. We are not saying that we are against that or we want that to stop. What we are saying, and again, I'm saying it again slower so that we all understand, is that when we in Tobago set our research agenda, our research and development agenda here, then we would be able to have the gains of students solving the problems that we have here. So it is all fine and good for them to come from wherever they're coming from right now and doing the research they're doing right now, and that's wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful. But we want an opportunity to have that research agenda created by us so that we have the problems that we need fixed. This, to me, was also very clear, but maybe it was not. Let me also state, because I'm not sure if you were in the room, Assemblyman Farley, one of the things you said was misquoted. So let me explain the accreditation process as we learned it from the Accreditation Council of Trinidad and Tobago. There is a registration process. That is the first step. You get your name, you send them, this is your name, it is registered. You then work with them. This is if it is a brand new institution. You then work with the Accreditation Council to ensure that your curriculum is well developed and that your program is well developed. You must, and again, this is coming, and I'm really upset that I don't have the specific notebook where I made the notes while speaking with a member from the Accreditation Council. The next step is to have your first batch of students go through the entire process up to graduation. So that, if it's a 4-year program, we're already talking 1 year of registration, and then at least probably a year to develop the program, and then 4 years of your students walking through the process, getting to graduation. And it is only after then, within 1 year of that first batch of students graduating, would you then be allowed to apply for official accreditation of your program. And then if all of your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted, your program will be accredited by the Accreditation Council of Trinidad and Tobago. That is the process. Madam Presiding Officer, I also, during the break, had an opportunity to go back to some of my written notes and so forth, to identify the source for the real growth rates that were quoted earlier. If you go to the United Nations National Accounts Analysis of Main Aggregates that was released in December 2018. This is done continually, but the last set of data was from December 2018. You can go in, and let me give you the website. UNSTATS.UN/UNStatsUnstats.UN.org/UNSD/UNStatsUNSAMA/. If you go to that website, you would identify that there is an opportunity for you to get a host of different reports. You can go to country profile, you pick your country, you select which year or combination of years you want the data for, and then you hit submit, and the data is available there. Where does this data come from? Each country has its data mining entity in Trinidad and Tobago, that is the Statistical Office, Central Statistical Office, the CSO, and they are tasked with sending that data to the UN, and then the UN aggregates and puts all of that data together for all of the years. It really, really pains me to have to... Madam Presiding Officer, let me just continue. Madam Presiding Officer, allow me to just continue. Dr. Keith Rowley, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, and Mr. Butch Stewart of Sandals International, at the interview that he did, as in Mr. Butch Stewart in Barbados on the 27th of October, 2008 in Barbados, said categorically that Sandals International will not be investing any direct funds into the Sandals project, as in the construction of Sandals. Members on the other side need to be honest about how they speak about this. Because if you don't listen carefully, you would get the impression that that is not what is happening, because they keep talking about Sandals investing, and Sandals investing, and Sandals investing, Madam Presiding Officer. They have identified Sandals as a game changer. We saw it in 2017 budget, 2018 budget, 2019 budget. This is a perfect example, Madam Presiding Officer, of the PNM hanging their hat on a single horse. Because it seems like the entire development of Tobago was on the back of Sandals. And in that same interview, Madam Presiding Officer, in October, Mr. Butchort also said that it is not his responsibility to develop any country. It is the responsibility of the government and the people who they elect to run the country. It is not his responsibility. So we need to stop. No, I guess you guys can continue speaking. I cannot tell you what to talk about. But we need to be honest with the people about Tobago, about what Sandals would and wouldn't have done for us. Madam Presiding Officer, let me just go back really quickly to the funding issue, because that is a big deal. As it relates to direct funding via the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and I would like to read this part. The 2015 to 2018 report on the progress of Vision 2030 outlines possibly funding innovation projects via the 11th European Development Fund in areas such as capacity building. In addition, the Global Services Promotion Program of the Inter-American Development Bank, and all of this is coming from that Vision 2030 report, said that they partnered with the government of Trinidad and Tobago to fund initiatives that provide information technology-enabled services training with the aim of increasing, and I quote, the availability of human capital to support the growth and international competitiveness of firms in that particular sector. I am sure, or I hope, that our colleagues, your colleagues in the PNM, in the central government, would be thrilled to include a project like this in those kinds of funding opportunities because they are available, they are underground, and those reports identify several projects that have been funded in Trinidad via those funding streams. So please, have that kind of conversation when you are speaking with your colleagues, through you, Madam Presiding Officer. I have also spoken, Madam Presiding Officer, with several locals who are concerned about how they would be able to financially participate in something that is like a University of Tobago. And what we need to do on the ground while we are going through this whole thing is to ensure that we are very clear, we have very clear policies about how our locals can participate and how they will not be disadvantaged. Because even though this is geared towards internationals, we need to ensure that our locals also benefit. We need to ensure that our GATE program is clear and that there seems to be so many, I keep getting calls all the time about people who are having issues with GATE and how that's working and so forth, so that needs to be cleared up. Now, even if that is not cleared up, I think one of the things, Madam Presiding Officer, that this government of Trinidad and Tobago and the Tobago House of Assembly needs to do is work very closely with financial institutions on the islands that allow things like student loans, so that even if the students aren't able to go through and get GATE and they're not able to fund it on their own, a student loan is an option. As a matter of fact, that is how I was able to pay for the latter half of my schooling. And 10, 11 years later, I'm still paying, but it was a worthwhile investment. Madam Presiding Officer, when we envision that the Tobago University of Tobago would have a very strong research and development component, it is because we know that there is significant funding opportunities that goes along with research. And the fact that Tobago is basically virgin soil, we haven't had a lot of research happening here, would be a really, really good reason, a really good justification for us to get a lot of the research funding that's out there internationally. And let me just give a couple examples. We have the Baxter International, which provides funding to projects that promote wellness and fosters innovation. So that's a general, they're very open. We have the well-known Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And they have what is known as a Grant Challenges program, where they practically fund anything and everything that is new and innovative as long as it challenges the norm and works towards development, particularly international development. And then we have the UN AIDS Development Innovation Venture. And as their website said, it is open to anyone, anywhere, that is developing, and I quote, new solutions to the critical challenges affecting millions around the world. These are just some opportunities that we will grab onto once that kind of research agenda is at the forefront of whatever University of Tobago we have on this island. And just to give an example, and I am glad the Secretary with responsibility for health, wellness, and family development is no longer in the room, because she spoke about our research that has happened with, for example, the University of Pittsburgh. As a proud alum of the University of Pittsburgh, I knew when we had the prostate study here in Dutch Fort. Many of us, if you're a little older, you may have actually had the services at Dutch Fort. And as a matter of fact, I knew, because this was, the Tobago person was Dr. Alan Patrick, but the University of Pittsburgh person was Dr. Claire Bunker, who was actually within the Graduate School of Public Health that I got my degree from. So I actually knew her and knew about this project. As a matter of fact, one of the periods when I was going back and forth between Tobago and Pittsburgh, I did some data collation and some data entry for that project in Dutch Fort. So it's a perfect example of how this can work. In the end, Madam Presiding Officer, it seems as if, from listening to all of the members who've spoken from the Executive Council, that this University of Tobago has been in planning forever. And because it seems to have been on the table for forever, this is why we insist on including the term post-haste, because we been talking about it long enough. We have been speaking about this for far too long, Madam Presiding Officer. And permit me to quote somebody who has been listening to these debates today. And we have a lot of people locally, internationally, who've been listening to these debates. One of those members of the public messaged me privately, and they said, and I will quote, "Not new, but a decade and more of PNM administration and no advancement on this not new idea. Absolutely unacceptable. And additionally, why is it not public knowledge that former administrations had considered this and were working on it? What you are seeing is a grand display of ineffective leadership, unproductivity, and wasted resources." I end quote. The person further asked, and it is a question that I am posing to you, who've said we've been doing this forever. Where are the results? Where are the results? There may be interim results, but please, where are the results? I am happy that this is work that we can continue. I am not about reinventing the wheel at all, at all, at all. But please give us an opportunity to review those reports of all of those teams of experts who've been working over the years and all of those plans that they have developed. Let us see them, please. One of the members was reading from a position paper. I'm happy that that position paper was read from here. I am wondering through you, Madam Presiding Officer, if we could get a copy, and if Tobago can get a copy of that position paper. That would be absolutely wonderful.
The crosstalk, please.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. We would like an opportunity to look at the plans that have already been in place, because as you said, there may have been a whole lot of work that has gone in to having an implementation plan, to having a proposal done and all of that. So let us look at that, please. One really good next step would probably be to lay the overall proposal, because what you've been talking about continually, everybody has gotten up and has said about, we're doing this and we're doing that and we're doing this and we're doing that and we're doing this and we're doing that. But what that seems is like it is a collection of individual things that just happen to fall under the definition of education. So we come today and we talk about it, and we're doing this, and we're doing this, and we're doing this, and we're doing this. What we are asking for is a specific plan that outlines how you would get from where we are now to where we need to be. Madam Presiding Officer, I am not the one asking this. The public is who is asking for that information. Madam Presiding Officer, I am therefore asking that we pass the motion that was slightly amended. And for one, let me say this. I am the one who amended the motion because I have enough sense to listen to industry professionals who know more about this than I do. So I will be the first one to admit that what was there may not have been perfect, but what we have brought following is better than the watered down option that you have provided. We will not, Madam Presiding Officer, agree to any more watered down motions. Tobago is sick and tired of these watered down motions. What we brought was something good. What we brought was something credible, and we are asking, Madam Presiding Officer, that this House votes on that motion because it is what Tobago deserves. Thank you.
Members, I have before me a motion and two amendments. So I will put the original motion, and then I will deal with the amendments in the sequence in which they were laid. So, honorable members, the question put: whereas there is a need for indigenous Tobago tertiary education institutions that focus on resolving Tobago-specific developmental issues while offering the innovations to the world. And whereas the Tobago House of Assembly is responsible for education, including curriculum development, via the 5th schedule of the THA Act, and whereas education tourism is a credible option for diversification and strengthening of the Tobago economy, and whereas neighboring Caribbean territories are actively seeking international universities to set up campuses that meet the needs of local while simultaneously bringing hundreds of foreign students, be it resolved that this House move post-haste to develop an internationally recognized and accredited University of Tobago to include faculties in food production, marine and environmental studies, 2, innovation and business development, 3, the arts, culture and tourism, and 4, public applied and alternative health. Be it further resolved that this University of Tobago partners with reputable international universities to provide globally recognized programs on the island of Tobago while facilitating an influx of international students to the island. The first recommended amendment, moved by the minority councillor and put to the House, is to revise the 5th paragraph to include but not limited to. And let me read that how it will sound. Be it resolved that this House move post haste to develop an internationally recognized and accredited University of Tobago to include but not limited to faculties in All in favor of the amendment as read, say aye. Any against? Okay. The amendment is not carried. Further, there is an amendment to add or insert between the two resolutions. Be it further resolved that to facilitate the development of this University of Tobago, a working group of local and international industry professionals be convened to craft the design of this University of Tobago, including its offerings and costings. All in favor of inserting this amendment? Aye. Any against? The motion, the amendment for that insertion is not carried. We have amendments that have been moved by the Leader of Assembly Business. We go back to that fifth paragraph, beginning with be it resolved. And it is requesting that we remove move post haste and remove to include faculties in and all for areas of subject and instead insert supports the efforts of the Executive Council. So it will read, be it resolved that this House supports, well, that should be support, the efforts of the Executive Council to develop an internationally recognized and accredited University of Tobago. All in favor of the deletions and the substitution, say aye. Aye. Any against? Okay. The amendment for that paragraph is carried. The last paragraph is also recommended to be amended. Be it further resolved that this House, and it deletes okay. Be it further resolved that this University of Tobago partners, it is requested that that would be deleted and includes and instead insert House support the Executive Council in its continued dialogue. Additionally, there's a request to delete the last line on the island of Tobago while facilitating an influx of international students to the island and instead insert for the University of Tobago. So that last paragraph will read, be it further resolved that this House support the Executive Council in its continued dialogue with reputable international universities to provide globally recognized programs for the University of Tobago. All in favor of the deletions and insertion and substitutions for that paragraph, say aye. Aye. Any against? Okay, the amendments to that section is also carried. So the final question, the amended version of the question being put is, whereas there's a need for indigenous Tobago tertiary education institutions that focus on resolving Tobago-specific developmental issues while offering the innovations to the world, and whereas the Tobago House of Assembly is responsible for education, including curriculum development, via the 5th schedule of the THA Act, and whereas education, tourism, is a credible option for diversification and strengthening of the Tobago economy. And whereas neighboring Caribbean territories are actively seeking international universities to set up campuses that meet the needs of locals while simultaneously bringing hundreds of foreign students. Be it resolved that this House support the efforts of the Executive Council to develop an internationally recognized and accredited University of Tobago Tobago. Be it further resolved that this House support the Executive Council in its continued dialogue with reputable international universities to provide globally recognized programs for the University of Tobago. All in favor? Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. If you would like to call a division, you can. However, I have already ruled. The ayes have it. The motion is carried as amended. Leader of Assembly Business.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I beg to move that this House stand adjourned to a date to be fixed.
Members, the question is that this House now stand adjourned for a date to be fixed. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? This House now stands adjourned until a date to be fixed.